You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores! Hosted
by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And this episode number 15 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, their new location in Amherst, and of course in Tower Square in downtown Springfield, your go-to pregame spot for Thunderbirds games. Alongside Matt Baker, I am Steve Forney. Matt, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Steve, how are you? You caught a little sickness over the past week. I know we missed you at the Thunderdome Wednesday night. You doing better?
I'm getting there. This is the third time I've had COVID, and this one hurt a lot. This was, I mean, in 2023, it's like you question whether or not you even test yourself. And I woke up Wednesday morning after a terrible night's sleep Tuesday, and I was like, I was in the shower for 20 minutes, and I'm like, you know what? I should test before I go to school. And it did not take long for that positive result. And this one hurt, man. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I couldn't get off the couch. I couldn't do anything. I was sleeping for 10 hours at a time.
Wow.
I sleep for 5.5 hours a night. It was a mess, but it was the right thing to do. And, especially at the games, I work with a lot of guys down there that are older and, they got their own health issues, and I can't be bringing the stuff around two hockey teams.
Yeah.
Never mind, people from that age group. So I appreciate Pat Kelly filling in for me. And appreciate all the feedback from the fans. A lot of people reached out and checked up on me, and I appreciate that. And, just based on the game Wednesday, it was a weird day from having that in the morning to have the fire alarms go off. The whole thing was wild, but we'll get into it, Matt. I want to say, first of all, I'm glad nobody can see because I was worried. It's like an Amazon warehouse right now in my office. It's Christmas coming up. It's the best time of the year. But boy, oh boy, we got packages all over the place. I'm like Santa in here. It's fantastic. Everybody over there good though. Everybody's healthy and happy.
Yeah, we're good. We had a little bit of strep in our household last week. This is the time for it though. It's amazing. So everybody, we got like another, by the time we release this episode, half a week until Christmas. So everyone stay healthy and, because this is the time. Sickness is everywhere, and we're both in schools, so there's no escaping it from us with our kids, between us, our wives, our kids. There's no escaping it. But we're healthy for now.
This is what 5 days of shaving looks like for those of you on. I can't grow a beard for my life. This is the best I got after a week of not shaving. But
I wish that was the case for me.
It's been weird, and it's funny. My wife goes, "Well, what happens if we all get it at Christmas?" And I said, well, the worst case scenario is the four of us, me, her, and my two kids, enjoy the day ourselves without the hustle bustle and the in-laws and the outlaws and the cousins. And we just sit and order a pizza and enjoy each other's company. That's the worst thing that happens. But I think we'll be all good by the weekend. And I fully plan on being there on Friday and on Saturday. Those are a couple of really big games, and I got my Christmas ugly suit all planned out, so I'll be wearing that thing. So keep an eye out for that. But
there you go.
No, I appreciate everybody for reaching out and checking up on me. So I guess we can. Well, first of all, this is one of the things. I'm a radio guy. I was never a podcast guy, and I always love the immediacy of radio because you have your show live. And, we usually record on Monday nights. We release on Wednesday. We got in a nice little groove of doing that. The problem is when Wednesday turns into a big time news day and you didn't talk about it Monday, now you're almost a little out of the loop. And so Wednesday, obviously, Craig Berube gets fired. Drew Bannister gets called up. Mackenzie McEachern gets called up. Jacob Verana gets sent down. It was like absolute chaos. And so I guess now's our time to recap that a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about that an hour after our podcast sort of drops. I'm thinking, well, this episode didn't age well.
Right.
It didn't take very long. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot, and I was watching that Blues game Tuesday night. I believe it was against the Red Wings.
Yeah.
But it was actually televised, so I was able to watch it, and Hugh McGing had a few nice shifts. But the Blues, they just looked sort of uninspired a bit. I was thinking in my head, and I kind of follow some of their fan pages. What's going to happen with Berube and the GM over there, and then you wake up Wednesday morning, and I mean, at first it was just Berube fired, Bannister named interim head coach. I'm thinking, great, that's great for Bannister. I think that's great for the Thunderbirds roster. He knows all of these guys in and out. He knows all the guys, or I shouldn't say all of the guys. He knows a good portion of the players on the Blues roster. I'll have it right here. I'll read it right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have it if you don't. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So here are the players that are on the Blues roster that Bannister has already coached in some capacity. You've got Nikita Alexandrov, Sammy Blaze, Jordan Binnington, Jordan Kyrou, Joel Hofer, Mackenzie McEachran, Hugh McGing, Jake Neighbors, Scott Perunovich, Alexei Torpchenko, and Tyler Tucker. And, and he knows all the guys on the Thunderbirds roster now. So I think it's a good move for everybody. I feel like now the Blues players and sending Vrana down, look, he wants to win, and the Blues are, I believe, in 8th place right now, or the second wild card spot in the NHL playoffs. So if you're on this roster now, you're playing for your spot, and Bannister knows the style of play he wants to bring to this team, and he knows who in Springfield can get the job done for him. And so if you're not doing it in St. Louis, and I think that couldn't light a fire in Springfield as well. Knowing, hey, coach, trust me. If he needs something, I'm just trying to put myself in the skates of some of these guys, and maybe that adds a little bit of fire. So I think it's good for everybody. But I remember Wednesday morning, on edge, thinking who's going to coach the T-Birds tonight.
Right.
What's going to happen here, and I knew it would fall into place. But then I see Dan Tkachuk named interim coach, and hoping for a good Wednesday game, and it was wild. It was wild Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that maybe goes a little unnoticed is like understanding roles and where guys slot in, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and when you get called up, the head coach of the NHL team, whatever the AHL affiliate is, doesn't necessarily know. They look at the numbers and they say, oh, this guy's got a bunch of goals, or this guy can kill penalties, or this guy, but they're not watching the games, whereas when that list you rattled off is half the team. And when that, that Tyler Tucker is good at killing penalties and playing physical, and that Jake Neighbors is great on a certain spot in the power play, and sort of where everybody can slot in, you're able to play them towards their strengths. And I think we've seen that in the Blues. I think they're 2-0 since.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is not only the respect they have for Bannister, none of those guys you mentioned are necessarily the leaders of the Blues. So getting buy-in from Braden Shen and Torrey Krug, that's the easy part. The hard part's getting everybody else, and he already knows everybody else. So, I think he's set up for success. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that interim tag was lifted at some point come January, February, because the respect is so there that I think I think that it's going to work out really well for him and for the team. Is it going to be some long-term thing? I don't know, but how many coaches have you seen get called up? Chris Knobloch in Hartford just got called up to
coach Edmonton,
and they won like 8 straight or something like that.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. Like, I think that's kudos to St. Louis. Not nothing against Chris Knobloch. He did a great job in Hartford, but Edmonton has their own affiliate, and they chose to go outside of their organization. And so, I think, and I think the Bitten brothers alluded to this a little bit too when we spoke with them. St. Louis is not afraid to keep it in house, sort of thing.
Yeah.
They trust what they have in Springfield, and I think that adds a little bit extra sort of push here in Springfield of, this is my path into the NHL, and this is an NHL organization that will trust what we're doing here. And so kudos to the St. Louis Blues. Again, nothing against Chris Knobloch or in the Edmonton organization, but they went out of house for their head coach. And hey, you could hire who you want, but
Yeah.
I
even
can't.
sometimes that helps. I mean, Chris Knobloch walked in and not to get too nerdy about the Edmonton Oilers, but he walked in and he said, how come Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and
Leon Draisaitl,
the guy with the hyphenated name there who's escaping me. He's like, why aren't they playing together? Why don't we throw them on a line and see what happens? And what do you know? They're like, the top scoring line in the last month of the season. So it's like, sometimes it's good to have that outside perspective, but that outside perspective doesn't necessarily mean you got to go to another organization. Sometimes it's just a guy in another time zone who's in your affiliate to look at it and say, let's do this instead of that. And I think it's going to work out really well for them.
Let's hope so. And for the Thunderbirds as well. Like I said, now we've got Dan Tkachuk, and it was a bit of a seamless. I mean, he's been the associate head coach now for 4 years, I believe, 3 or 4. But it seems pretty seamless, and he's off to a 2-1 start as interim head coach for the Thunderbirds.
Now it doesn't. I'll tell you though. Oh, by the way, Ryan Nugent Hopkins. That was the guy. I had to look it up from Edmonton. Ryan Nugent Hopkins playing with McDavid. It doesn't necessarily though seem that way on the surface. At least it didn't for me. And I have to be honest, I was a little nervous because you do lose your head coach.
Mm-hmm.
You lose Mackenzie McEachern, who's a big leader in that locker room, and you get sent down what on paper is a pretty relatively disgruntled NHL star in Jakub Vrana, and losing that kind of leadership and then getting something that might not be the best for your locker room, again, on paper, right, on the surface, that can be a lot for a young team. This is a young team, and to have that kind of change happen is a lot to handle. And the fact that they won 2 out of 3 since, I think says a lot about the character of the players on this team and the way they did it, which we'll get into. But the fact that they were able to overcome and win 2 out of 3 to me it means a lot. It says a lot about the players in that locker room.
I 100% agree with you on that. Kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. Because that's exactly, that's great minds think alike, and that's exactly was my thought process of, and we'll get into the game on Wednesday. We know nobody in that locker room will make an excuse, but had that game on Wednesday ended up a loss, you'd have to sit back and kind of understand why. Right, I get it. There's a lot happened. You woke up Wednesday morning without a coach and you play Wednesday night. Like, you lose that game, you can understand it. Nobody would make an excuse, but they didn't. That's what I mean.
Right.
And then how the game actually, developed, how the game went, with a fire alarm going off and those 2 quick goals and just crazy. Again, we would be on this podcast tonight saying, tough loss, tough loss to the Americans, equal team. You get why. Hopefully when they see him next time, there's a little bit more continuity, consistency leading up to the game, and then let's see what happens. But we're not. We're talking about a win, and the good teams have that character. And I will say this, a week before Christmas, December, 19th, this team has character, and I have faith that when it gets tough, they're going to get going. You know what I mean? Like, when this gets into playoff hockey, I believe, barring injuries and something catastrophic happening, I believe this team will be there somewhere in the playoffs. And I have faith that, they're going to grind it out. You might not win a playoff series. I can't, but this team, they have character. They have grit. They they are Springfield, and, they will fight. I have confidence in that.
I wonder too, and I guess one last thing on Verona for me, and I just sort of thought of this, but I wonder how important it is and how helpful it is having not only Callie Rosen, but Nathan Walker on this roster, because those are two guys that played 82 games last year in St. Louis, and you get sent down. And I remember being worried about a guy like Callie Rosen. Is he engaged after being sent back down? Is Nathan Walker engaged? And they both are.
Yeah.
And maybe Jakob Verona is thinking, I can't believe it. Here I go down to what city is this? What state am I in? And you're walking into a locker room that has those two guys that can look at it and say, no, we're good. Come down here, put your nose to the grindstone, figure it out, score a boatload of goals, and see where we're at. But no, you're the tough, the grit, the moxie of this roster to me is one that, like, I don't see this team finishing second to last in the division. I don't see it happening because strictly on the will, the grit, the moxie. Like they've shown the last 3 games that they have it. And I'll tell you what, I want to get ahead of ourselves. If that is going to be a 7-game series against Hershey, buckle up, because that was the most fun 1-0 game I've watched in a long time. So,
such good hockey. We'll get into it. Such good hockey, though. It was, yes, 100% agreed.
Yep. Give me a whole.
All right, well, let's get into Wednesday, shall we?
Sure.
All right, yeah. So I mean, you were sick as a dog, so
I watched the game, but I don't know how there I was.
Yeah, I mean,
delirious.
Look, we talked about it in last week's episode. This was Malcolm Subban's former team. They had a great run. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they're a good team. We talked about off the top of the episode, right? A lot changed. A lot was going on behind the scenes Wednesday morning. And, Coach Kachuk steadies the ship, so to speak, and they're ready to play. And then they let up 2 quick goals, like within a matter of minutes. You're down 2-0. You continue to, in my opinion, outplay the Americans after that. I think shot-wise, it was something like 18-6 in the first period. So you're kind of outplaying, you're out hustling. I think you're winning sort of those loose puck, neutral zone battles in that first period. And then you have Gaudette with a late goal in the first. And that kind of, in my opinion, calmed things down. I think it was important that it was Adam Gaudette, their goal scoring leader, their sort of main offensive player up until this point in the year. And then you immediately after that goal, you're heading into the locker room saying, all right, let's take a deep breath. We're down 1. Gaudette is right in the ship here. Other than those 2 quick goals, and I don't even know if I would blame both of them fully on Subban, but you have Subban playing great. And you're thinking, okay, we can do this. You end up going into overtime. That was actually a fun overtime. I know I'm skipping a lot there, but it was a fun overtime with actual, like with shooting. It wasn't just, and we've kind of talked about this, where you're just pulling the puck out into the neutral zone. You're getting a line change. You're holding the opponents out there. It was a fun back and forth overtime with shots and saves. And then the Thunderbirds go into their first shootout of the year with Ryan Suzuki scoring the only shootout goal. I thought, again, great team win. You can't actually, and you mentioned this too, I don't think you can understate, the coach taking a puck to the face in the first and sticking a tissue box, I think, up his nose to stop the blood.
Just blood stains on the side of his cheeks for 3+ periods. Talk about a bad. Imagine this is our new coach, and there he is, bleeding out of his nose, standing behind the bench, like, "Let's go, boys."
But again, right? Like setting the tone. Like this is it. So we'll talk about setting the tone a little bit. From a physicality standpoint, over the weekend, but I mean, your head coach is setting the tone for all that too, and he gets a puck to the face again. The fire alarm, everything. No one in this locker room is going to make an excuse, but everything is pointing to, all right, I understand. It's just not our night. Our head coach for 20 hours is now in the locker room being held. Who's leading us? Who's telling us what to do, right? Who's talking to me when I'm on the bench? My new head coach? Nope, he was there. And you know, I've never sat on an AHL bench before in the middle of a game, so I don't know how much is being conversed head coach to player. But
or captain, or captain or assistants,
right, but I just knowing that you still have your leader behind you when you're sitting on the bench, that means something. It has to.
Yep.
So kudos to the team for that. I just thought it was a very evenly matched. I mean, the Americans, we talked about this with the Penguins. I think they're right there talent wise with the Thunderbirds. Yeah. They're out of division, but it was a great team win.
I tip of the hat too because I'm just so nerdy about this stuff. Ryan Smith, who again last week we talked about Rochester, don't know much about him. Ryan says they like to play fast, they like to play up tempo, they like to score in bunches, but they also will sacrifice some defense for their offense. And the 3 goals Springfield scored were because they jumped on chances that Rochester sort of went all into the zone and didn't have the help back that they needed. And, it's almost like Ryan was sitting there in the coaches, while they're studying film, you know what I mean? It was kind of everything that you were looking for from a perspective of what you're going to see and how to play against it. Subban, like you said, I don't think was to blame, but I thought that fantastic in the third period, fantastic in overtime, the shootout. I mean, that was a great game of hockey to watch. And one thing to the coach, but Matt Pekka, Will Bitton, these leaders in this locker room, whether it's Kessel, Callie Rosen, Walker, I mean, they're just so loaded with guys that get it. Mm-hmm. And the importance of the get it guys is so important at this league. And it was very much relevant. And oh, by the way, again, only 3 penalties in this entire game. So, another relatively clean game. Both of them were in Walker. I almost always give Nathan Walker a pass for everything he does wrong, just because he's Nathan Walker. It's probably not fair, but no, I was just,
he's kind of earned it, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that was a great game against what I still believe is the most beautiful jersey in all of sports. Those blue Rochester Americans with the crest, the front, the white trim. Oh, I could watch that team. I want one of those jerseys, but I can't ever wear it in Springfield. You know what I mean?
Fair.
They're just beautiful. They've been beautiful for 20 years. So, big win. No, go ahead.
It was. Well, and just to add to your point, you were mentioning it, and I do remember Ryan saying this in the broadcast. You look at goals for and goals against. We've talked about this before, too, when it comes to the Thunderbirds. You had the Americans sitting at 78 goals for. This is currently, as of right now, Monday night. 78 goals for, 92 goals against. But they're still sitting there, 12 wins, 27 points. Now you look at the Thunderbirds, who 30 points, 14 wins, 78 goals for, same amount, but 65 goals against.
It's huge.
So absolutely, they're plus 13 in that. And to me, they're losing close games. And we know hockey, those close losses can very easily be close wins.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You got to be competent in both ends. I mean, you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially, there's so many regular season games to be played, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I mean, I don't know, this weekend kind of just got me excited about the future of this particular roster. And it's, you are at some point going to be facing a playoff series, and winning a series is a lot different than just winning one game. You can go out there and you can take those chances. And we're not an Americans podcast, so we don't have to really talk too much about that. But that style of hockey is not conducive to winning a 5-game, 7-game series in the playoffs. It's, over time, teams scout you a little bit closer. They get to know your tendencies, and you're going to lose those games.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. A massive, I thought that was the biggest game of the weekend for them. Again, just based on everything else outside that was going on, and the fact that they were able to pull it out. Fire alarms, dude. I'm all my years. I'm like, I leave one game. I miss one game, and all hell breaks loose. Like, what is going on in the Thunderdome tonight? But oh no, you Thunderbirds! I had more people sending me direct messages about the fire alarm, the PA announcer, the coach getting hit with the puck.
Yes, quite an experience there Wednesday night.
Even Ryan, by the end of the broadcast, was like, "Can we just get out of here? Like, can we just scrap this whole day?" But hey, walked away with 2 points. I guess that's all that matters in the end of that one.
That is all that matters. Saturday's game I actually missed, and AHL TV was not letting me watch this on demand.
What?
Yeah, every time I even tried it this morning. My school had a 2-hour delay because of the rain and wind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me throw on the Thunderbirds game and rewatch it. And it's still, for some reason, this game on demand was not letting the playback was not working on it. So all I can go from is the notifications. And I'll just say this, and my biggest takeaway from another 4-2 win against the Phantoms, a team we've seen a lot this year. My big takeaway was Vrana on the second line, getting a point right away, assisting on Gaudette's goal. And so, going back to what you were saying, having other veteran leadership that can know exactly what, not maybe exactly, but maybe know what Vrana's going through, maybe a little bit of what he's feeling. Seeing these leadership guys like a Callie Rosen and a Scott Walker be successful and buy in to Springfield, paying dividends right away. Him playing on the second line with Bolduc and Suzuki. I'll save what I have to say about the Sunday game, but I just thought, again, just from, getting a feel for the game through the notifications, seeing him jump on the box score right away was big for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Gaudette's another guy who, let's be honest, when he was in Ottawa, he was up and down, up and down, up and down. He got to Toronto, he was up and down, up and down. So understanding what it's like to be in the AHL on a Thursday and be in the NHL on a Friday and being back in the AHL on a Sunday, like he kind of gets that whole process too. And again, this is twice, 2 games in a row. Thunderbirds, bad penalty by Leo Loof, 2.5 minutes in. They give up a power play goal 3.5 minutes in, and you're for the second game in a row in an early hole. And that didn't stop them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gaudette 5 minutes later scores. Abramov gets one of the second, and it's almost like, I mean, let's call it what it is. I think both of these games, the Thunderbirds came out with less energy than their opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe that's good on Lehigh Valley and Rochester, but maybe the Thunderbirds, there's no doubt they looked sluggish coming out of starting both of these games. So can that be improved? Absolutely. But the fact that they were able to look at resilience in the face and overcome it, to me, says so much about the squad and the team and what they got going on. And yeah, I mean, Mikhail Abramov, to me, again, this is a guy we've talked about on the podcast a lot. He might be a little streaky too, but he was excellent. I mean, all weekend I thought he was excellent.
3 points this weekend, right? And we're including that Wednesday game in on the weekend, right? So 3 points this weekend, 1 goal and 2 assists. And even Sunday's game, I thought he played pretty good.
But all over the place. It's tough.
Yeah,
he's number 9, and I see something happen, and I assume it's Gaudette because he's 8, and I'm like, or I think Gaudette's not 8 anymore, but I think it's somebody else, and then I look and I'm like, oh, that's Abramov. Like,
yeah,
nice play, kid. You know what I mean? I thought he was great, and I think that him playing with the guys that he's playing with is going to go a long way. I don't know. I thought it was a great weekend. At least these first two games, I thought that Lehigh Valley, again, wear them down, and you wear them down, you will beat them.
Yeah.
You just gotta keep on it. You gotta keep at them, keep coming into the zone, keep applying pressure. Kean Washstruck with a nice fight against Brendan Furry, which is one of my favorite names in the league, along with Angus Crookshank. Those are my two favorite names in the league.
Zarenko, 34 saves, AHL's number 3 star of the night. It's a broken road, like we're saying the same thing, but I mean, Zarenko's, other than those two little hiccups, he's been phenomenal this year. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. I wonder too. I mean, we've talked about the rotation. I don't know, quietly, because he's not playing that many games, but Zarenko has to be in all-star conversations. I don't see why not. He's playing 50% of the games, so I know there's that. But
can you put Zarenko in without putting Subban in? That's what part of the problem with splitting 50-50. Both guys are playing well. It's like, can't have one without the other. I don't know. Because I get what you're saying, but Subban is playing just as well. Like, how do you put one in and not the other?
I guess, yeah. I mean, so Subban's 2.38 goals against, Zarenko's 2.58. Zarenko's save percentage is 926. Subban's is 915. So
interesting. They're like facsimiles of each other.
They are, and I don't know. Yeah. And you've got Zarenko in his second year, and Subban, I don't know how many years he's been around, but he's a vet. He's been around. And I don't mean this in a negative way or any disrespect, but an old guy of the league. Especially the younger AHL that it is now. But they're dominant goaltending until you run up to Hershey, and then
I know. Well, we'll get into Hershey, but
these guys. Yeah,
I do want to give Subban credit, and I don't know if I've done this yet in the podcast, but he has fully embraced the city since he got here, and they do teddy bear tosses, and when they show Thunderbirds players deliver bears to local place, and there's Malcolm Subban at the front and center of it. And when I see guys walking around Springfield, or when I walk into a game and there's one player signing autographs, it's always Malcolm Subban. I give that guy so much credit for, I mean, this is what now, his fourth, fifth team at least. And yet here he is fully involved and fully engaged in the team, in the community, in what we have going on. And I credit that player, because I can imagine when you're those, I don't even want to say journeyman goldies, but when you've been around, you talk to Mike McKenna, former Springfield Falcon, who's retired, he'll tell you, like, he's been on so many teams, he'll look up and be like, I don't even know what city I'm on. What, he's playing for the Dallas Stars wearing Ottawa Senators pads. Like, he has no idea where he is at any time, but I just want to give a quick shout out to him for embracing it. He's embraced this place, and I hope he sticks around. I'd like to keep him here for a couple of years, 3-4 years.
I'm with you. He's my kids love watching him play, and his positioning is so good. I mean, we've talked about it. He gives up some rebounds, but his positioning on that initial shot, and it showed actually in the shootout.
He was excellent.
There was no daylight there. There was not, when you don't have to worry about a rebound, you just have to make a save. I have a lot of confidence in Malcolm Subban to be able to make that save. He great positioning, great ability to track the puck. It's just eating up those rebounds a little bit.
And a good leader for Zarenko.
Yeah.
A good inspirational player for Zarenko. So we are going to talk as well about the game at Hershey and preview what we have coming up this weekend. This is, I think, my favorite weekend of the year, right before Christmas, where it's just everybody's kind of, as my kids would say, cuckoo banana pants, because there's so much going on, and there's people in town, and people are on vacation, and yet everybody seems to have a great time at the Thunderdome. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I want to mention the SRG podcast, proudly sponsored by White Lion Brewing and their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street. Of course, right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square at 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games. Parking in downtown Springfield's a little wild these days. Make sure you park in the Tower Square garage. Swing into White Lion, show them your Thunderbirds ticket, and they'll validate your parking for you. In fact, they have little cards right at the like right on the bar, and I think there's a QR code, and I think you just scan the thing, and they sort of make sure that's all taken care of for you. While you're there, grab some Boomer nachos, Seuss mac and cheese, some Hall of Fame wings, some of those massive chicken tenders. Those things were amazing when I was there, along with any of their 20-plus beers they have. Don't forget, you can find your favorite White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler. White Lion Brewing, now in Amherst in downtown Springfield, a proud local sponsor of the SRG podcast. And make sure that when you go, you tell Ray Barry and all the wonderful people over there that the guys at SRG sent you.
Absolutely. Always a good time at White Lion.
So this Hershey game, as we mentioned, to me was the most playoff feel-ish game so far this season. And again, it's the first time we've played Hershey, and you play Hartford so much, you play Providence so much, you play Bridgeport so much. It's like, they know each other, right? We know as fans what we're getting. They know as players what they're getting. But yet that first game against a team like Hershey, it didn't even feel like there was a feeling out process. It just felt like both teams full throttle right at each other, head to head. And it was a pleasure to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great game. And one thing I noticed, when you talk about sort of that playoff feel, and I think I don't remember if I mentioned this to you, but the roster, the lines that the Thunderbirds put out there had a bit, in my opinion, sort of like a playoff game one feel to it, where, I don't mean this in a negative, disrespectful way, but you maybe, at the expense of maybe a little bit of offense with like a Jamison Reese out there, he gets the night off, and now you have Sam Bitten in there. I thought it was you have Keen Washcrack, Sam Bitten, and Skinner all playing. And I think this was the first time all three of those guys were in the lineup together. And in my opinion, and Osmanski too, but those are like your very physical, not afraid to throw down kind of guys, the big guys, right? And in my opinion, that's sort of like, you're feeling out game one of a big playoff series. This is going to kind of set the tone for the rest of the few weeks of the series. That was kind of my feel on it. And I like it. I thought it went really well. Just so it ended up 1-0 loss. So there's not a lot of goal scoring to talk about, but just the play. I thought we talked about this last week. The top line would have to, almost go point for point with Hershey. That didn't work out, but I thought the second line, Bolduc, Suzuki, and Vrana, they were all over the place. Bolduc had a few shots right in the slot there. I thought Suzuki, great hustle. He brings the puck down with a lot of speed.
Yeah, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's really fast and good with the puck there. And I thought Vrana played well. I think getting those points early on Saturday kind of helped him get in the groove a little bit. But, I thought he played well. He did not at all play like a guy that isn't into it, I thought.
Agreed.
So that's a positive sign. I mean, that was neither one of us could probably pick him out of a lineup. I don't know the guy, but that was my biggest concern in last week's episode. How does this potentially negative attitude, how does this potentially interfere with this locker room? Is his head going to be right? Does he want to be here? And there were no signs of that at all. So in my opinion, this is someone for, in Vrana, as long as he's here in Springfield, it's only up from here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So he was all over the place. Sam Bitten. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the only thing that I'll say is there was a couple of things that were like NHL moves at the AHL level. Like he did a couple of these, like drive to the front of the net and then leave a backhand pass. This like backhand no look pass and there's nobody there, and I'm like, whoa, buddy, like slow down, man. It's the AHL, man. Like there's no, they're not used to this style, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But for a game, personally, when shots in a game are 40-38 or they're 38-35, that means that there's no defense.
Mhm.
And for this game to have shots, I believe they were 19-18.
18-19, yes.
And people will say, well, that's a boring game. Well, no, that's just a game where each team is in their lane, and they're not allowing the other team the opportunities to do what they need to do.
They're
And
blocking shots, and that's what you want. Like that, to me, that's huge. That they recognize. I think both teams recognized this is a potential playoff matchup, and we only see each other 4 times
yep,
in the regular season. So these 4 games are I hope, because it was great Sunday,
yeah,
are going to be played. You're going to see blocked shots. You're going to see guys, giving up the body here in December, January, when these teams play each other. And that's great hockey.
yeah,
So.
agreed. And Verana had 2 shots, Suzuki had 2 shots, Bolduc had 2 shots, and when you only have 19, that's pretty much a third of your team's shots coming from that one line. So, it wasn't a lot, right? It wasn't a big sample size, but like you mentioned, that second line, those 3 guys were some of the best forwards on the ice.
Yeah, and I thought the defense. I mean, Leo Loof got his first night off. We were talking about this a little bit last night in our kind of text going back and forth. So he gets the night off. He's been sound. He's been great. But again, you're only giving up 19 shots to a very good Hershey team. Rose and Kessel, they've been solid all year.
Kessel's
Coghlan,
been great. Kessel's been great
Yeah.
the last month and a half. He really has.
I think he made one sort of, and it didn't lead to a goal, but he kind of misplayed one puck in their offensive zone that led to a 3-on-1, kind of 3-on-2 break for Hershey, but it ended up getting broken up. But other than that, Kessel was, in my opinion, positioned well. He's not taking bad penalties. He's not turning the ball over. I think, we talked about this at the very beginning of the season. I remember it. And you brought it up. How will Rosen impact Kessel? If you're not thought of, you've got to be everything and everything for this team defensively. You have other guys there that can take the load off a little bit, and you'll still play top defensive pairing minutes. But when you're there, just play.
Right.
And I don't know. I've seen a different Matt Kessel this year. He's been great.
Yeah,
been great.
Agreed.
I'd be happy to go to MGM with him now.
And you were going to mention Sam Bitten, who it was good to have in the lineup. I love the fact that he went after Dylan McElrath.
Yep.
And McElrath, I think, is respectful enough to take any challenge, especially from younger players. The only issue I had with that is it was kind of at the end of a long shift for Sam. And, when he made at least 4 or 5 trips up and down the ice, and then you got to fight not just anybody, but that behemoth in Dylan McElrath. I wish that he had maybe let that go. I mean, that would have been a perfect. I mean, you get through 2 periods and there's no goals. You're able to do that a period and a half in, or towards the end of the second period, the beginning of the third period. That's sort of when it has its biggest effect. And especially when you're not at the end of a shift, because I think that he just watching him spin with McElrath, I'm like, oh, this guy's wiped. Like, not picking on him or anything. That's the nature of the business when you're flying around and you get to the end of a shift and now you got to freaking wrestle an alligator practically. It's not easy. So but
I get it. And
get in the lineup and knock around a little bit.
Yeah, no, and all fair points. I'll bring this up though, and I don't have the answer to it, but just a thought that pops into my head. I think this was their 10th straight loss in Hershey or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. It could be.
It was something like that. Like it's been a long time since they've won in Hershey, and maybe this was, we will be bullied no more, and so all fair points, and I agree with you where you can tell he was a little gassed, and definitely gassed. I mean, that's a big boy you're going up against in Dylan McElrath. But, if you wait to the third period, maybe it's not 1-0. Maybe that was just like, this is, hey, you will not bully us anymore. I don't care where we are. We're here. We're going toe to toe. And the first chance I got, I'm going. I think that's just Sam's attitude. So, tough fight. I think probably the first one he hasn't gotten the better of this year.
Yeah. Nobody does against McElrath, and that guy's a monster.
Yeah.
And the other thing with having him in the lineup, especially on the same line, I thought that Will has this edge when Sam's in the lineup.
Sure.
And the first couple of years Will was here, it was like once, twice a game, Will ends up on the goaltender in the crease, net's knocked off, and there's Will's, flattened out on top of the goalie. Like that aggressiveness, I think, is what makes Will the player that he is. And I know he hasn't had the same scoring touch this year that he normally does, but I felt that like that edginess, that aggression that makes him the player he is comes out more when Sam's in the lineup.
Sure. Yeah.
Which makes sense after talking to him because they're such good buddies.
Yeah. And I'll say this after the fight, Will is the first one there, give him a little stick tap and kind of let's go, and another thing too, I mean, let's not forget, and this is no disrespect to Sam, but Sam Bitten in a penalty box versus Dylan McElrath in a penalty box. I'll take that edge as a Springfield Thunderbirds early in the game, right? And obviously Springfield wasn't able to capitalize on that, but all those things are probably taken into account, and hopefully Friday night in the Thunderdome, it's a different outcome.
Yeah. Nope, totally. So I'm glad to see it again. I'm glad to see it again coming up here, and I'm glad to see it on home ice, which I guess we might as well get into is sort of the upcoming schedule, and a couple games here right before Christmas, which I'm really looking forward to. And like you said, you put in here in the notes, home for 7 straight. That's crazy. I didn't do the math, but I better buckle up. Get this COVID out of my system because I'm busy.
I'd heard that, and I went through the AHL app doing the notes for the show, and sure enough, I counted 7 straight. So they open up their Deuces Wild Friday against Hershey for their first of 7 home games. Deuces Wild, was it through the first period? I think you got hot dogs, Coors Light, and
popcorn,
$2. So Deuces Wild, brought to you by MGM.
Did you know, Matt, that they call hot dogs glizzies? By they, I mean this younger generation. Hot dogs are called glizzies.
I did know that.
I
choose not to use that term.
No, they're hot dogs.
Yeah, they're hot dogs. There's a lot I don't. Yeah.
We're getting
I don't
old,
want to
man.
alienate any listeners, but
No,
yes, $2 glizzies.
Whatever the hell that means.
Look, there isn't much, in my opinion, to kind of break down or get into for the Friday night game. Just given the fact that we just played Hershey, I would expect though. We saw Hunter Shepard Sunday. I am guessing Clay Stevenson will be the goalie. That's my guess on Friday. That's not something I'm excited for. Again, as when we were previewing this game, I thought Clay Stevenson would play. He's got 4 shutouts on the year, a .934 save percentage. Like I said, the Hershey Bears magic number is literally 1. They score a goal, they're winning that game. So it's going to be a tough one. But again, my same talking points. I think the top line has to match Hershey's top line. I think you get a puck that just dribbles by Subban. I like the chances in another 20-20 shots on goal game Friday night. It's our turn. We get a lucky break, because that's what it was. I think it was an unlucky break for us. Subban tracked it. It kind of just rolled right under his shoulder.
I will just say real quick, and I love you guys, but Thunderbirds fans, these are the games where we need you people. All right, I want you yelling "Ref, you suck" at Casey Terreri when he makes a mistake.
He'll be there. Yeah,
but when you get a game that's 0-0 into the second period, it turns into a library in the Mass Mutual Center. I do not want a library. The more it's 0-0, the louder I need you to be. I want Let's Go T-Birds. I want cowbells. I want to hear you guys. It's 2 weeks. It's 2 days before Christmas. You guys got nothing better to do. I want you loud and on it. And I want to feel your guys' energy in there because those guys on the ice feel it. And if you're making it seem like the morgue, then they play like the morgue. If you make
we're actually, I'm 100. My family will actually be at this one because we don't have basketball because this is our kind of holiday break from basketball. So we'll be there. So we'll be loud. I think we're in. We move around. I think we'll be in section 18 Friday night. So we're looking to make some noise, and you're 100% right, Steve. This is a game. Every player we've talked to, they talk about the feel in the Thunderdome pregame. You got the kids banging on the glass during warmups. That gets them pumped up. I think we need to bring the noise.
Yep.
We've got to bring it and show the guys that we're behind them, and we know they appreciate it, and it makes for a funner environment.
Yep. And then hopefully after all these difficult games against all these Pennsylvania teams, we can wrap it up on Saturday with a game against Bridgeport, who I think we all can agree kind of sucks. And then
it's also, I believe it's the Paws and Pucks game too.
Pucks and Paws night, yeah.
Pucks and Paws, yeah. So
tell your dog to be loud.
How does that? Is this their first one that they're doing, Steve? Do you know?
No, they've done a bunch. So basically, I think they have it where you have to register your dog, but they put you in not in a certain segment, but they separate them. So the person, if you bring your dog, the person next to you doesn't bring their dog. So
Gotcha.
It's ruff, 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 all, barking at each other. So they kind of separate the dogs, which is good. And then the dogs all get to take a lap on the ice, I think second intermission.
Yeah.
But, pardon my ignorance. I'm just down there. I never get to bring my dog.
I've never been to a dog. These are quite. I was talking to the kids about this game, and they're like, "Well, what do you do? Does everybody have to bring, your doggy bags?" And I'm like, "I would think so.
Yeah,
I'd hope so.
You
clean up.
They let you out to go take a leak at intermission and then bring them back in.
Yeah, but I do know this. You do have to register the dog ahead of time, and I believe it's $5 for a dog ticket. You do have to, again, registering your dog.
Yeah.
Your dog technically gets a seat. And it's $5, but that'll be pretty interesting. I'm actually kind of looking forward to watching that game on AHL TV from a distance.
Yep.
But
there'll be a lot
of Bridgeport, and again, regardless of what happens Friday, I think this is a good thing because you're right. It's lesser competition in Bridgeport, so you got two games against Hershey. I tread carefully. This could be one of those trap games. We know we're better than Bridgeport, but don't get sucked into that trap because Bridgeport is always good. They beat you twice early in the year, so don't get sucked into that trap. But regardless of what happens Friday, you either look to turn things around against Bridgeport heading into the new year, or you keep it rolling at home.
Yep.
So,
agreed. And I do want to give just a quick shout out. I will actually have 19 family members in the building on Friday night.
Nice.
My cousin, who is an Army Ranger, just got back from Poland. He spent 8 months in Poland defending the border.
Wow.
He'll be here, and then actually on Saturday during the day, he's going to get married.
Oh,
so,
congratulations to him. That's awesome.
So Friday night's the Thunderbirds for my family, and then Saturday night's the wedding. And then he goes into training to be in the 75th Regiment. For anybody who knows anything about the Army, that is the most badass of the badass. I mean, this kid is... when they need somebody to take down somebody, I don't even want to talk about it. I feel like I'm breaking some kind of, code. Yeah, right. But this kid is, I'm so proud of him. And I'm not going to use his name because I don't want the government knocking on my door.
Will you be at the game Saturday?
I will. So
okay.
I'm going to go. They'll have the reception in the morning, and then there'll be some later activities, which I'll miss due to the game, which he's fine with. We're all fine with, but I wanted to get him as the military hometown salute, and they had one already taken for that game, and that's totally fine. But just know that my cousin is the freaking man, and I'm really glad that he's going to be there, and I'll have 19 family members in the building. So if you hear somebody going, "Yay, Steve! Great announcement!" That's my aunt.
That's you. Yeah.
That'll be my aunt. But so I'm excited for that one too. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, have a Merry Christmas. And actually, yeah, we'll have to talk about this, Steve, what we're going to do next Monday. Usually our recording night is Christmas. So
we'll figure it out. You know me. I can
stay
turn
tuned,
around an
fans.
episode
Stay
and go to
tuned.
town,
We'll announce it on our social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and X or whatever it is. What
Twitter.
when we're releasing that next episode. So stay tuned for that. But as always, let's go T-Birds.